And it was just genuinely embarrassing looking back. But the point of this episode is your past will be embarrassing. It will be painful to look back if you're actually making progress.
There is no perfect anything. There's only better. And you're never going to get better if you're not willing to reflect on the past, to invest that into the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode. It was another milestone, episode number 750, How We Hold Ourselves Back. It was last week's live podcast. Today, episode number 751, Sometimes Your Past is embarrassing. So first of all, before we get started, little housekeeping. If you're watching us on YouTube, obviously we are not in the studio. So Alan and I and Alan's wonderful partner, Emilia, and her business partner, Bianca, and good friend of ours from the Y Power podcast, are down here in Florida. So we brought all of our stuff, as we do, because no excuses. This is a non-negotiable for us. So if you're watching us on YouTube, we look a little bit different. Again, our goal is always to deliver the highest audio quality possible. So we have all of our stuff. Hopefully you will not be able to notice any difference.
And none of it got broken in the checked bag, because I know they hammer those bags pretty heavy.
They do. They tend to.
Yes.
So the other day, I was, and I'm sure you probably do this, or maybe you don't, but I was going through my Facebook spam, cleaning my messages. Well, you know why? Because I messaged a DJ. So Tara and I are going to go elope in Colorado, and then when we come back, we're going to have a party. And I messaged the DJ, and I wanted to make sure the message didn't go to my spam, because sometimes it does weird things.
Yeah.
And I went into my spam, or my old messages, and I saw a bunch of messages from when I was probably like 21 to 23.
So 9 years ago.
9 years ago.
It's wild.
And a lot of those messages were my interactions with females, potential mates that I was trying to court back in the day. And let me tell you, it was brutal. Genuinely, like, I got the nervous sweats reading it, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. Like, I wasn't a bad person by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought you kind of had to be mean. You had to be, like, forward. You had to be the badass to get attention from the women that I was trying to get attention from. And it's just like, I've evolved so much since then, and it was just genuinely embarrassing looking back. But the point of this episode is your past will be embarrassing. It will be painful to look back if you're actually making progress. And this is why when people say, oh, the good old days, like, the good old days weren't that good. They were just different than they are now. Mm-hmm. I was talking to somebody recently about how, and I said, I want to preface this. I would get home from my job when I was a weatherization foreman. I would text my buddies at like 3 in the afternoon and say, hey, I'm leaving New Jersey now. I'll be home in 5 hours. Like, have a blunt rolled. Let's have some pizza. We're going to play NBA 2K, whatever it was. And that was every single weekend for like a year. Now, I'm not embarrassed by that, but I can joke and say those were the good old days because it was just different. There was no responsibility. Like, I could just hang out and get high. And again, getting high was fun. It was. It still is fun.
Right.
I get high occasionally. It's fun. I do enjoy it. But it'll also burn the business to the ground. When people say, like, these are the best days of your lives when you're younger, the good old days, when you're talking about nostalgia, for us, the nostalgia is embarrassing.
A lot of it, yeah.
And that's a good thing because that means you're making progress. That's a good thing because there was a lot of conflict that made you change your character. The one thing that has changed, hopefully more than anything else, is our characters as men, as individuals, as partners in relationships, as coaches, as leaders. Our characters have changed so much, and that's why it's genuinely embarrassing to look back and be like, Kev, I cannot believe you said that. Like, why would you say that? It's not a negative thing, but it was just very, like, it was very bro, very alpha. Like, that stuff that I just thought in retrospect was the way to do it. It's just embarrassing, genuinely embarrassing now. And to the point where I was, like, somewhat nervous to do the episode because I'm not ashamed, but embarrassed. That's the word I'll use.
I think it's important for everyone out there to understand that if you're not in any regard embarrassed or ashamed, or if you have no negative emotions when you look at your past photos or your past actions or your past behaviors or your past thought processes or your past choices, I was on a coaching call recently. Oh, no, I was on a podcast. It was a 16-year-old podcaster, by the way. It's called The Transformation Journey. Great interview. We had the full hour. It was awesome. And I was like, oh, my God, I wish I was like this when I was 16. And he asked me my relationship with regret because he did his research and he knows I talk about, the top 5 regrets of the dying by Bronnie Ware all the time and stuff like that. And he asked me like what do I have that regret with? And I basically said, I think the important thing about regret is your relationship with it. So Kevin looked back at his past messages on Facebook, and I bet you anyone out there listening or watching, you can look back at past choices that you made of things that you said or did, and you would be embarrassed. I told you about a time that I lied blatantly to my friends about a video game, that I got caught in that lie, and I felt so much shame, and I still think about that every now and then. I'm like, oh my God, like why would you ever lie about that? That wasn't even important. And I lost all credibility in that moment. I'm embarrassed by that moment still. I believe that embarrassment and regret are the best teachers. What's your relationship with embarrassment? What's your relationship with regret? Do you allow it to control you? So let's say you regret saying something dumb. Do you never reach out to a girl again because you said something dumb?
Right.
Or do you decide to be more effective and more congruent and more aligned and work on your character? I think if you're out there listening right now, if you look back on your past and think that you're not embarrassed at all, then you probably haven't improved much. And it's not like when I was being interviewed by the 16-year-old. I thought about a decision that I made when I was 16, and I talk about this in my speeches often. When I was 16 years old, me and my buddy Dave went to Johnston, Rhode Island, and we met 2 girls that we had just been talking on the phone with. Not even cell phones, like actual dial.
There was no Instagram.
There was no Instagram back then. And we ended up losing our virginity together. Like obviously not together, but like we met in this park and we had separate cars and we went and we didn't even know these women that well. That was a terrible choice, in my opinion, in hindsight. Back then, as a 16-year-old guy, I thought that was really cool, and everyone else thought it was really cool. I'm embarrassed by the decision that I made, because in hindsight, I don't think that was a good, intelligent choice. But I improved since then. No, of course I wouldn't make that choice again. That was me at level 16 of this life. Now I'm 32 years old. I'm at level 32. Hopefully my life has improved, and not because of anything other than I've improved and my choices have improved.
So we're understanding at a very deep level now who listens to this podcast, and we're realizing that the majority of listeners are either entrepreneurs, early entrepreneurs, or they're people who want to become entrepreneurs. I've told this story before, but I just think it's a great lesson, and it's embarrassing as hell for sure. So Alan and I had somebody that we knew that was very, very wealthy. Money was not a problem for this person at all. Yeah. And this person said, hey, I want to start a podcast. And I was like, awesome. This is great. This person's like a multimillionaire. Like, this is great. This is an ideal client. And I get on the phone with this person, and he says, this is what I'm looking for. Just send me a quote. Like, what'll it cost? And Alan and I talked about it, and I was like, I'm gonna do $1,500 a month for this. And Alan was like, all right, that sounds good. Like, just understand that he wants to make sure that he's feeling like he's getting a deal. So he doesn't think about the money because he didn't get wealthy by not caring about money. And I was like, awesome, whatever, cool. So I send the proposal to this person, and I'm like, $1,500 a month, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he messaged me back, he emails me back and said, this is my counter offer basically. Can we do it for $1,000 a month? I'll pay you 3 months up front, and I'll give you a plug on the podcast. So it'll say this podcast was produced by the Hyperconscious Podcast at the time. And I was like, honestly, no. I will need $1,500 or nothing. And he never responded to my email.
Or my messages since.
Very embarrassing, genuinely. It's something I'm embarrassed about. But what did I learn from that? And the conversations that came from that of you and I, and now we're talking, potential $10,000 a month clients. That's all amazing. But if I wasn't embarrassed about it, how much of a shift would I make?
No, if you pretended that you did the right thing, you would never have came to me and asked, where did I go wrong there? Because this person is extremely, extremely influential, and this person's well-connected. I mean, they're very close friends with someone named Gary Keller, who wrote the book The One Thing, and that's someone we want to interview. There's just a lot of benefits that Kevin wasn't seeing. It was short-sighted, and it was an unintelligent choice. And what that person had offered us was a huge win-win, and they knew it. That person knew it.
Yeah.
And Kevin didn't know it, And so you stood your ground, and that's okay. You made a mistake. But if you don't look at that as a mistake and you don't let the embarrassment drive you to get better, you wouldn't have come to me and asked where you screwed up or why that happened or whatever. And I think that that's the key. What is your relationship with embarrassment? What is your relationship with making mistakes? What is your relationship with failure?
A shameless plug too. These guys are the absolute real deal. For anyone who's listening to this, Kevin and Alan are the realest guys. They're going to go so far, and they're so early in their journey still, because I just know how far they have to go. And everything that they teach, everything that they preach and they're doing is the same exact stuff top of the top guys are doing. They literally have mimicked it to a T. So I absolutely shameless plug for those guys. They have all the greatest intentions to just simply help people grow and want to accomplish their dreams. And so I absolutely just want to say that and let you guys know that you guys are doing an incredible job with everything that you guys are doing for just the community that you guys are building. And, I love to see it, and I can't wait to be able to do more stuff with you guys.
And we talk about jeffing forward, failing forward all the time on this podcast, but if you're constantly afraid to admit that you screwed something up, you're going to stop all the learning. And we recently just got another client with a very similar circumstance because of that screw up, and this is an even bigger opportunity in some regards. And so if you're out there listening, like, your past should have some positive things that you did and some negative things that you did. It should have some positive things you said, and it should have some negative things you said. The question is not whether or not you're all positive or all negative. It's are you more positive now? Are you getting better now? And I've said this so many times, people are probably sick of hearing it, but Michael Jordan never had a perfect basketball game. As a matter of fact, he could look back at every single basketball game that he's ever played in, and he can look at mistakes that he made. Dropped the ball, missed a dribble, had the ball stolen, missed a shot. He's never played a game where he hit every shot. That's not a thing. He just played better and better and better games. There is no perfect game. There is no perfect anything. There's only better, and you're never going to get better if you're not willing to reflect on the past, to invest that into the future. And Kevin and I, 750 episodes into this podcast, we learn something new every single time, and that's why we're not perfect podcasters.
We never will be.
Never.
It doesn't exist.
But we will be better podcasters than we've ever been. And right now, I would argue we're better podcasters than we've ever been. But that doesn't mean we're perfect. We're never going to stop that game. It's an infinite game. So.
Well, it's like regret. The reason regret is because you're looking at a past decision with a current awareness.
Fire.
That's exactly what embarrassment is. I would never do what I did.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, it's so bad to talk about that but you guys might, if you're listening, you might say, like, I would have done the same thing. I would have done the same. I wanted $1,500 a month. Like, I didn't understand the difference $500 makes when it's, so if you don't have the level of awareness around the thing, you might say, like, why are you actually embarrassed about that? It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
So it depends on the level of awareness that you have in order to look back retroactively and say, I would have done things differently.
And just to provide context, and then we got to go soon.
I think we do. What's the time at? Can you see?
1 second.
See with your eyes? These eyes are crying.
13
These
minutes.
eyes have seen a lot of love, but they're never going to see another one like I had with
Like
you. Okay.
Just to provide context, this person was in real estate, and people in real estate are constantly doing negotiations. And so this person cared a lot about negotiation, and the fact that you weren't willing to negotiate made them have a bad taste in their mouth. And now you know that. So in the future, you'll study the person's background and go, okay, do they care about negotiation? Do they care about money? What's their risk tolerance? Like, you just didn't have the awareness. And so me at 16, making that choice, I didn't realize that was a dumb choice. A lot of bad things could have happened. I could have got her pregnant. I didn't know her very well.
It could have been somebody that was trying to hurt you.
Exactly. And so, very last thing I'll say on this episode is this. I wanted to make sure I set this intention. Everything is relative, and I want to provide an actual example. When you're sitting in a $2 million home, the $200,000 home that you grew up in seems really terrible in comparison. But that doesn't mean the $200,000 home didn't serve its purpose for that chapter. I lived in a $300 a month apartment during college. I grew up in a beautiful home, and I moved to a really shitty apartment in Worcester, Mass. That doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It just means I'm a kid in college who couldn't afford much. And then there I was 4 years later making six figures. I moved into a nice place on the lake. Then I moved back with my mom after I broke up with my girlfriend. And now Emilia and I have a home together. It's all relative. And you have to understand that when you look back at your past. And the very last thing I'll say is, like, I don't drink anymore. It's been 2.5, almost 3 years since I've had a sip of alcohol. It was Westerly Round. I remember it like it was yesterday, 3 summers ago. And at one point, I remember taking 22 shots in a single night and thinking that was fine. That is so embarrassing to my current self, but that's called evolution. If I still didn't, imagine a world where I didn't think that was embarrassing. A shot competition, and I wanted to win that. No matter who you do a shot competition with, you're going to lose. Everyone loses that game. I now understand that at a deeper level, and whether I'm embarrassed or not, embarrassment is proof you've progressed. Embarrassment is a necessary part of growth. It's what you do with it that matters.
And it's also one of those things, and this is the last thing. Alan went to sip his water, and it was complete. There is a tiny drop in there. What embarrassment becomes empowerment when you succeed.
Fire.
I'm thinking that scene that I tried to talk about on one of our live podcasts, and I just bombed, from The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
Where Will Smith, the character, Chris Gardner is the character he's playing.
Here we go again.
Him and his son are lying in a subway bathroom because they don't have anywhere to sleep.
Yeah.
And he had to pretend that they were like in the jungle and the dinosaurs were coming, and so his kid would fall asleep. And there's that scene, and I get emotional thinking about it because that just hits me, where somebody's knocking on the door and he's crying. He puts his foot against the door and he's crying because he doesn't want somebody to come in. That would be perceived as embarrassing. That's like an embarrassing moment. I couldn't afford to find a place to put my son, but now he's got a movie made after him, and it's the most inspirational thing in the world. He turned embarrassment into empowerment through action, through knowledge, through whatever it may be. So the things that you look back now on that may be embarrassing are actually, they could be like a superhuman
story.
thing for you now. So I think that's important to share, because a lot of what you and I talk about, I'm not very embarrassed about.
Right.
When I got my 6-figure job, my first trip, I drove to Delaware 6 hours with my boss, who I'd met one time, and I couldn't afford to eat. I literally went to the grocery store and got turkey and bread and chips, because that's all I could afford to eat. That's it. I didn't have enough money to eat. It's like, at the time, it was super embarrassing.
Exactly.
But now it's awesome because of how far I've come.
Just like us having the studio in my sister's old
right.
bedroom.
At the time, it
sucked. Yeah.
But if you keep going, the things that were once embarrassing become the amazing parts of your story. That's just progress, and it shows the progress. So I felt like it was important to butcher that story one more time.
Fire distinction, brother.
Next Level Nation, our next episode is last week's live Q&A. We talked a lot about grit. Are you born with grit, or is that something that you can develop? Alan and I I'd say we probably have similar thoughts on that. If you are looking to grow a podcast that you already have, reach out to your boy. If you don't have a podcast and you're thinking, I want one, right now, I think there's 2.6 million podcasts out there. Most podcasts just don't make money. Alan and I are blessed because we're 750 episodes in, and we have a multi-6-figure business from our podcast. So if you're a podcaster and you actually want to make money, please reach out. I just had a client get 2 new clients yesterday while we were at this event. So I definitely know how to help you monetize your show, and that's just my number one thing right now. I've completely transitioned from mindset. I'm all in on podcasting. I want to speak on it. I want to coach on it. I want to learn it. I want to be it. So if you need help, please reach out. I would love to be the one who does help you.
If you're out there listening right now, I just want to let you know that we have a full-service business behind this podcast and an incredible Next Level University team that we talk about often. We have Next Level Web Solutions for anything you need website-wise. We have Next Level Business Solutions for anything you need in terms of business consulting and business building infrastructure, and that's me who runs that. And then we've got Next Level Social Media, and we've also got Next Level U Mobile. There's a mobile app coming out soon. And what am I missing? Next Level Podcast Solutions, which Kevin just talked about.
Yep.
So,
social media, web solutions, there's a lot of things.
We're not just a podcast, we're also a business. And if you're out there and you want to achieve your dreams, there's no question there's no question, especially if you're an entrepreneur, that you're going to need at least one of those services. Let us help you, even if it's just to learn about it. The first call is completely free. Reach out to Kevin or myself. If you need help, we are here to help you. Some of you out there listening want to just listen to us for personal development. Other people want to really build businesses and podcasts, and we will help you in a way that we just can't do on this show because it's more customized and one-on-one.
Next Level Nation, we love you. We appreciate you. As always, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.